Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. My name is Justin White. I'm the Assistant Director of Admissions here for Commonwealth University. Joined with me is my colleague, Mike Hall, the Director of Financial Aid. And, just want to take the time to thank you all for joining us this evening, parents, students, to the students who will be watching this in the future. This will be posted on our social media channels for students to watch in the future and for you all to watch too as well. If there's any questions that you might have missed throughout or anything that you might have missed throughout this presentation, I hand it over to my colleague, Mike Hall. It's your show, and we'll have a panel of questions to ask towards the end of the presentation. So if you think of anything and don't want to forget it, please do not hesitate to write it in the chat or in the Q&A section of Zoom. And Mr. Hall, the floor is yours.
All right. Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. Well, welcome. As Justin said, thanks so much for being here and taking time out of your evening. I'm going to throw a lot of information at you tonight, and it's going to be difficult to process all of it. But the good news is we're here to help you and your student all the way through this process from start to finish. Each year, we will be here to help you with the financial aid process. So tonight is designed to give you some basics, get somewhat in depth. I have some screenshots from this year's FAFSA that we will show. If you have questions, as Justin said, we'll have a chance to ask those questions at the end and drop them in the chat as he had indicated there. Couple housekeeping items. Save your questions till the end. So we're not going to take questions during the presentation. We certainly will at the end. Please don't share any personal information when you're asking a question. Financial aid obviously is a very personal topic, but we want to make sure that you're not sharing any information that will identify you or share anything about your income when you're asking those questions, please. And then we'll provide contact information at the conclusion as well, so you'll know exactly how to reach out to the financial aid office at Commonwealth University. I'll provide contact information for the Bloomsburg, Lock Haven, and Mansfield locations. The other important thing to note is that we are one cohesive financial aid unit. So we are prepared to help students no matter what location you're at. We have a whole host of professionals who are here and ready to help your student. So whether you're a parent who is here alone tonight or a student alone, or if you're sitting together, we hope that's the case, but we understand students have a lot of commitments this time of year with practices and various things going on. But we do want to make sure as much as we can, make your student an active part of this process. And you'll hear me say that a couple different times tonight. Parents who are in the room, perhaps you've went through and had financial aid recently for yourself, or perhaps you have another student and this is fresh on your mind. Either way, we hope to provide some helpful pointers for you here this evening. We're going to start super basic, and we're going to say, what is financial aid? Well, financial aid are funds that are provided to students to assist them in paying for their post-secondary education. The terms that we often hear associated with financial aid are grants. We're going to cover grants tonight. We're going to talk about some of the federal grants that are out there. Grants are good. Grants equal free money. Scholarships, another term that everyone should be familiar with. Scholarships are also good. Free money. There's also self-help aid, things like work, savings. Those things we call self-help. In some cases, we refer to loans as self-help aid as well. And then, of course, there are student loans. Several different types of student loans that are out there. We're going to talk about some of those options tonight. There's loans for students. There's also loans that parents are able to apply for if they are willing to help their student with financing their education. So we're going to talk about those things tonight. That's super basic. Where does the money come from? So money comes from the federal government. And one of the things that you've probably already heard about, we're going to talk about it in depth tonight, is this thing called the FAFSA, the Free Application for Federal Student Aid. The acronym is FAFSA. That is the key to making sure that you are considered for federal money. So we want to make sure that your student is starting and you are completing the FAFSA for the 25-26 academic year as soon as possible. That application is open, and we're going to talk a little bit about that in a second. Federal government has grants for students that your student could qualify for based on the information provided on the FAFSA. And they also have access to their federal student loans, which we'll talk about those tonight as well. State governments provide assistance. In the state of Pennsylvania, we have a Pennsylvania state grant. The Pennsylvania state grant is administered by an agency known as PHEAA. That's the acronym PHEAA. That stands for the Pennsylvania Higher Education Assistance Agency. Universities and colleges, of course, are another source of scholarship money, institutional money, and in some cases, grant need-based aid. So universities and colleges that are out there will often provide scholarships. And if you've been accepted to Commonwealth University already, you will already know, or potentially soon, if you're still waiting, what potentially offers on the table for you for a merit-based scholarship. And I will tell you, now's a great time to be a student at Commonwealth University. I've worked at the university now for almost 18 years, and we are giving students more scholarship money now than we ever have before, which is really exciting. Private scholarship sources, high schools, clubs and organizations. A lot of people forget athletic booster clubs, band boosters, those types of activities within your high school sometimes are linked to scholarship opportunities. So make sure you speak with the leaders in charge of those things. Student and parent employers. Students, if you're employed right now, check with your employer to find out what's out there. There may be a scholarship that you can apply for. It may be a national scholarship, so you may be competing against a lot of other students, but it's worth a try. And then there are internet scholarship searches as well. Probably the one that I hear most, that I typically mention at this point in the presentation, is a website called FastWeb. FastWeb provides a variety of different scholarships out there. It's basically an aggregate database where you can go on and check out some scholarships. So, and again, they're national scholarships, so everyone's going to have its own requirement and require you to apply in a different way. So check it out. Be careful though when it comes to unsolicited scholarship offers, things that pop into your inbox, because as we know, scammers tend to attack us in a variety of different ways, and sometimes we see scholarship emails that aren't always legitimate. So when in doubt, do your research and certainly ask a financial aid officer if you're not sure. Types of financial aid really split into two categories here to make it simple. We have need-based aid. So need-based means the information that you're going to provide on the FAFSA will determine the level of need that you have. Need-based aid includes things like grants, loans, which you may be questioning, how is the loan need-based? So hold that thought for a second, because I'll explain it just a little bit later. And then sometimes employment as well, like student employment, campus work study. But need, looking at income, assets, and other factors, and all of that information is populated on the FAFSA, which we're going to get to shortly. There's also merit aid. Merit aid are typically scholarships, and that's based on usually academic or athletic ability, special talent or achievements, as well as sometimes program of study. There may be the program that you've been accepted into and committed to may have a scholarship opportunity that is merit-based as well. So those are really the two categories or types of financial aid that I like to talk about in this presentation. So let's get into this FAFSA thing that I've mentioned several times now, the free application for federal student aid. Why is it so important? So it's the primary federal form for financial assistance. Okay. Now, if you're in the room tonight and you've already completed the 25-26 FAFSA, congratulations. You've done it. That's awesome. Hopefully it wasn't as hard as you thought. The FAFSA has underwent serious changes and overhauls in the past 2 years. And I will tell you, the FAFSA is much easier to complete start to finish than it ever was before. So if you haven't done the FAFSA yet, please know that it is not nearly as hard as perhaps as what somebody may have once told you that it was. It's needed to determine your student's grant eligibility, both federal grants as well as state grants in the case of a Pennsylvania resident, federal direct student and Parent Plus loans. So all students are eligible to borrow their federal direct student loans, and we'll talk about those in a second. And parents, should they choose to help their student with an education, parents can borrow a Parent Plus loan. Now, that's not a requirement, parents. You're not on the hook for this if you don't fill the application out to do the Parent Plus loan. But we'll talk about the Plus loan in just a little bit. It's important to know, parents, that if you do intend on helping your student and you do apply for a Parent Plus loan at a later time, your student must have filed their FAFSA. Work study, campus-based work study jobs. In some cases, there may be universities and colleges out there that require it. At Commonwealth University, we do not require that you have a FAFSA filed in order to work on campus. Okay, that is not a requirement. There are some scholarships. Again, this may be more so at other colleges or universities that I'm aware of. We do not have any scholarships right now at a Commonwealth location where we are looking at the student aid index to determine a scholarship. So, but just be aware, these are some of the important reasons that you need to make sure you file your FAFSA. And oh, by the way, you have to file your FAFSA every single year. So the FAFSA that you'll be filing for now, I'm going to assume everybody in the room tonight is either a brand new student, so you're a senior in high school and this is going to be your first year. There may be transfer students in the room as well. But if this is your first year and you are looking at coming into Commonwealth University for this upcoming fall or summer, if you have a program that starts in the summer, which if you're all incoming freshmen, that's probably not the case. The financial aid year begins this summer with 25 and then 26. So the 25-26 financial aid year starts this upcoming summer into the fall and then spring of 2026. So you're going to want to make sure when you're out there starting the FAFSA, you're going to see there's 2 FAFSA forms applications available right now. There's 24-25. That's for students who are enrolled this past summer, fall, and this current spring. And there's a 25-26. So if you're coming in for fall, 25-26 will be the application that you need to complete. I mentioned that the FAFSA has become easier, so I put these bullet points up because I like to mention it. What used to be called the expected family contribution, or the EFC. So if you've had a student do the FAFSA in the past, it's now replaced with another number called the student aid index. And that number drives the determination of whether or not your student is grant eligible. Okay. Pell Grant eligibility and other need-based aid, I guess is what I should say. And there's been some other modifications as well. The federal government has tried to expand access to make the federal Pell Grant eligible to a broader population of students. And in terms of streamlining the FAFSA form, I will tell you that's probably the most beautiful part of this whole entire Simplification Act. It is very easy. And I walk through the FAFSA each year, typically on my own, just to see what the changes are. And I will tell you from start to finish. Now, of course, I wasn't relying on a parent to put their parental information in, but from start to finish, the FAFSA took me about 10 minutes to complete. So it's really not that bad. So we're going to do a walkthrough here. And in this walkthrough, I have some screenshots from the FAFSA that I went through. And I also have some that I asked my student employee in our office. She had taken some from hers because, of course, they're going to look a little bit different at a point because I'm an independent student, the way that I answered my questions, and she was not. So I'm going to kind of give you a really high level yet comprehensive overlook here at what some of these FAFSA screens look like that you can expect to see. And, I'll give you some tips throughout the presentation. Here's my first tip before I even flip to the next screen. Parents, make your student be an active participant. So it's the second time I've said this tonight, and I promise you it won't be the last. You need to find a weekend or an evening where everyone has time to sit down and be together in the same room. You can each have your own device and do the FAFSA together. Too many times in my career in financial aid, I have seen a mom or dad attempt to do both sections of the FAFSA. They log in as a student and they attempt to complete the student portion. Then they log in as a parent. And then they log back in as a student. And then before you know it, they forget who they're logged in as. They forget passwords. They input passwords incorrectly, and accounts get locked. So make your student be an active participant in this process. If there are students in the room tonight without a parent, make your parent be an active participant in this process. Don't try to do the parent portion for your parent. Sit down, do it together, and I guarantee you it's going to save you tons of headaches. The other thing I'll say for parents, parents, make your students start the FAFSA. Make them do the heavy work. It does work out. It's much easier for the parent if your student starts it first and then the parent logs in to finish. And I'll show you some of those screens as we walk through the FAFSA here this evening. So before we get into the screenshots, let's talk about the FSA ID or the studentaid.gov account as it's now being referred to as. What does that mean? So before you can complete the FAFSA, okay, both parent and the student must have an FSA ID or also known as studentaid.gov account. Okay, I'm still getting used to that because that was a change. So the easiest way to think of this is I tell people shopping online. This is kind of a cheesy example, but I think we can all relate to it. So if you don't have an Amazon account, you can't purchase something on Amazon, right? I don't think they have a guest checkout option. So the studentaid.gov account it's your account creation. It's where you store all of your information, and then you jump on to do the FAFSA, just as if you were shopping. You would create your account, you would save your payment information, save it, you have an account, now you're ready to shop. So you need to do the studentaid.gov account first. If you're selected for verification, where they have to do the identity verification, it can take 1 to 3 days to be active. So my suggestion to you is do the FSA ID separately, give it some time, at least 1 to 3 business days, and then you can log in with your FSA ID. So again, two-part process. We're going to create the studentaid.gov account first. Then once it's ready and active, we're going to use that to log on at studentaid.gov, and that's where we will begin our FAFSA. So this is the student view, and I have this split up into basically 4 different screenshots here, just to kind of give you the flavor of what your student will see. And the parent screens are going to look very similar to this as well. So you'll visit studentaid.gov. Your student will select they're ready to complete or file their FAFSA application. 25-26 academic year would be the year. And here are their screens. So the first thing is they are starting the FAFSA form as, and we're going to say student because we want the student to start their FAFSA first. They get some information about what it is. They have some information and some videos that talks about what contributors are on the FAFSA. So in terms of contributors again are typically parents, but depending on your family situation, a student may have more than one contributor. A lot of that has to do with how taxes are filed and things of that nature. So in most cases, in a family unit, one parent needs to have an FSA ID. But there are some cases where, for instance, if taxes are filed separately, both parents will be required to have an FSA ID. Okay, so it's worth watching the videos and reading through all this information. So the first couple screens that you see are very introductory. Tells you a little bit about what to expect, and there's videos there. There's an after you submit the FAFSA form. So some really good stuff up front. I would encourage, again, take the time and do it correct. Watch those videos together so that you understand exactly what's going to happen throughout the process. So the first section that the student will get to will be their student identity information. Now, this information, it gets pulled directly over from the studentaid.gov account. So all that hard work that you did at the beginning to create that account, it gets pulled over into the form. Okay, so we know the student name, the date of birth, social. Student will need to be very careful when they're entering this information to make sure that they are not entering it incorrectly, because a mismatch on a social or birth date can throw everything off and lock it up. So I always tell students, anytime that social is hidden, unhide it, look at it, make sure that it's correct. Then you'll go into other questions about the student, just some basic demographic type things. What's the state of resident for the student? When did they become a legal resident? So for many students in Pennsylvania, if you've lived here all your life, that's an easy answer. Okay. So they're just trying to determine your state of residence there. Providing consent and approval. So the student has to go through, and parents will do this later, to provide consent if the student had a tax return in the year 2023. This section, the student gives consent to allow studentaid.gov to pull that information directly over from the IRS website. Okay. And parents will have to do a similar thing. You have to provide consent, parents, when you get to your portion. So they securely import the information. You really won't see anything during that process. It's pretty quick. And if you've done it correctly and everything has went well, you'll see a success message, and it's as easy as that. You'll hit continue. In days gone by, parents, if you've done a FAFSA, you know that at one point you were redirected out to the IRS website, and then you were redirected back to studentaid.gov. That doesn't happen anymore. It automatically gets imported behind the scenes pending your consent. Students will answer questions about their personal circumstances. So you can see here, marital status is the first one. Student college or career plans. Again, where will you be? So if you're in the room tonight and you're in high school and you're getting ready to go to college this upcoming fall, you're a first-year student. Student personal circumstances. There's a whole host of things here that your student will need to read through. And if your student has been in any of these situations, they will want to make sure that they check the appropriate box. There's also a question regarding student homelessness and a variety of other things. So they want to make sure that you're checking any appropriate box here. And these questions are being asked to determine whether or not your student is a dependent student or whether or not your student is an independent student. You can see on that final screenshot there on the right, because I answered the questions as myself, and I'm married and I'm old, they considered me an independent student. However, in most cases, for a traditional college student who doesn't meet any of these things, they will be listed as a dependent student. Okay. Now, students will often come to us and they will say, well, hold on a second. I don't think that I should be a dependent student. I want to be independent from my parents. And I mean, as a parent, you're like, all right, perfect. I'm raising an independent student. That's awesome. The federal government will not recognize your student as independent unless they meet these things that I showed on this screen. There are some things that I'm going to go over on the next two screens as well, where students may feel like there are unusual or special circumstances that they also have. And in some cases, now these will require additional documentation that you'll have to provide to the financial aid office. But in some cases, if a student has an unusual circumstance or a special circumstance, they may in fact be an independent student. But again, in most cases, for the students that we work with, traditional age college students, usually going to be dependent upon parents. Okay. Some of the questions that your student will get, unusual circumstances, and you can see the list there, the bulleted items. Do any of these apply? The student will answer that question. There's also questions about whether or not a student was at risk of being homeless, unaccompanied youth, were they in legal guardianship determined by a court, and just it's important. There's a difference between legal guardianship and the other legal term that's out there, which is slipping off the top of my head right now. And then it also asks questions if students were in foster care. These are all questions that are working to determine whether or not this student may need to support additional documentation to say, let's review to see if you are in fact an independent student. What if a student has an unusual circumstance and they can't provide parental information? So you can see, you can submit the form if a student meets these circumstances. What happens if parents are just unwilling to provide the information? Well, if parents are unwilling to provide the information and everything else is okay, then students can be eligible for a direct unsubsidized loan only. Okay. So, this section here, it can get a little tricky. If you do have an unusual circumstance, if your living situation is different, if it's not traditional, I would encourage you, if you have questions when you get to this section, pick up the phone and give us a call, and walk us through it. There's a couple things I like to say during this section is number one, parents, um, please be willing to help your students. There are times where I hear parents say, I am not filling that form out. I'm not inputting my information into this form. I'm not sharing my social. I am not doing it. There's two important things to know. This is a federal form. So as you saw at the beginning, this is linking out, it's a federal government form. So they already have your social. So help your student out, fill the form out. Secondly, sometimes parents have a misconception that if they fill the parental section of the FAFSA out, that in some way they will be linked or tied to their students' federal loans and be responsible for repayment. And that's not the case either. By completing the parent section of the FAFSA, you are simply helping your student unlock the funds that they have available to them. Okay. So just keep that in mind. Again, if you have questions when you get to these sections, feel free to give us a call. If you visit a campus, make sure you ask to meet with the financial aid office, and we can sit down and go over these circumstances with you if they kind of fall outside traditional, I guess to say. Student demographic information here. You can see there's additional questions that are asked here, race and ethnicity questions. Then we jump into student citizenship status. Then the form starts asking some questions about parents. So it's going to ask education level of parents. High school information is here. Students will input the name of their high school, and it will populate typically, very easy to search by state. And then once you have the state in, you can typically start to type your school and find it quite easily. It will ask students questions about their finances, any federal benefits that they may have received, tax filing status. So again, and it's important to know it's always 2 years back. So we're talking 2023. Did your student file? Yes or no? What's the family size? Is the family size different from the number of individuals claimed on the 2023 tax return? So you may need to pull out a 23 return to reference that. How many students in college? And then here's the really important part is you want to make sure that you are selecting Commonwealth University on this section of the FAFSA. So it's my hope and it's Justin's hope that you're here tonight because you're interested in Commonwealth University. And we certainly hope that's the case. And you'll want to make sure you add Commonwealth U of PA onto this application. Now you can see Lock Haven selected here. You'll also find Commonwealth U of PA, Bloomsburg and Mansfield as well. Regardless of what you choose, even if you think you're going to be at the Lock Haven location, but ultimately end up at the Mansfield location, please know that FAFSA data gets sent to one centralized Commonwealth University location. As I said at the beginning of this presentation, we process aid as Commonwealth University. We are one solid financial aid office. We all work together. Once you get this section in and you select any other schools that you may be considering, you're going to go on to sign your form. Now, the importance before I leave this screen of putting Commonwealth University on there is so we can access your FAFSA data. So when it's time for us to send out a financial aid notification, we have your information. If you do not include Commonwealth University PA on here, we won't be able to get a financial aid notification out to you without you going out and updating. So make sure you include us so we can get a financial aid notification out to you. You're basically going to agree on this screen that everything you provided is truthful to the best of your ability. You haven't withheld any information, and you are clicking and signing and submitting your application. So the good news is your part is done, students, and then students will be able to select who their contributor or contributors may be. And the invitation to a contributor will get sent via email. So contributors, parents in the room, this is not a studentaid.gov view. This is the example of the email that you're going to get. Parents are going to get an email that says your student needs your help. You need to complete your section. Now you can log in. So parents, now it's your turn. You're going to log in using your studentaid.gov account that you created, and you're going to log in, and you're going to see when you get to your activity section, you will see that there is a section for you to complete your FAFSA. So you can jump on there, parents, provides information here. You're going to work through it just as your student did. And because your student did such a good job completing it, it's going to be really easy for you to click through this, parents. So click through it and complete it. You'll give your consent to get your financial data from the IRS, and you'll sign it, submit it, and your student will get a notification that it's complete. So it's just that easy. Sit next to each other, do it together, find a weekend where you can sit down and do it. Again, you'll be so thankful that you did it that way. But again, create your FSA ID. So a great task before the weekend would be, I challenge you all to create your FSA ID. Parents, if you have an FSA ID that you have used in the past for another student, it's the same FSA ID, okay? Because the FSA ID is tied to your social. Same as if you are enrolled right now or you have an FSA ID, parents, because you were enrolled at a university or college. If you have an FSA ID, that's the one you'll use, okay? So if it's been a little while, you may want to go out and request a password update if you haven't logged in. Okay, you don't want to create a new FSA ID if you have had an account in the past. That's really important. It's tied to your social. Let's talk about the PA state grant. So I don't want to leave non-PA residents out of the conversation, but it varies state by state whether or not a state will have a state grant program. And typically state grants are not allowed to cross state boundary lines. So we're going to talk about the PA state grant. I'll assume we probably have a good chunk of PA residents in, but to quickly let you know the importance of making sure that you are filing your 25-26 FAFSA by May 1. You want to do that because if you file after May 1 and you're eligible for a PA state grant later on, you find out you will not get it because you filed late. So one of the advantages to getting your FAFSA filed now, Pennsylvania residents, you don't need to worry about the PA state grant because you're in. Okay, you beat the May 1 deadline. Then you'll need to watch your email, and eventually you'll get an email from FIA, and you can see the acronym there, letting you know that it's time to fill out the PA state grant form for the 25-26 academic year. So, just be on the lookout for it. But that's that's what you can expect. So it's not nearly as time intensive as the FAFSA, but for Pennsylvania residents, please know there is a PA state grant application, and it's done through FIA. So I mentioned financial aid notification a couple times. So basically, let's pretend we're at the point where your FAFSA is filed. You've already been accepted to Commonwealth University, and we will begin sending out financial aid notifications. Right now, our target date is mid to end of February. So students, watch your inbox, and we're going to send it out to you. And it's a link. You will not get a paper notification in the mail. So again, it comes to your students. So students, make sure that you are watching your email, checking it daily. We will send you out a link. You'll simply click that link, and it will take you to your financial aid notification. So you'll see what you're getting in terms of grants, loans, and things of that nature. It's really important to note when you get it, it's not your bill. You'll see some estimates on there for things like tuition, living expenses, things of that nature. But just remember, it's not the bill. The section that you want to pay attention to will be your loan section, as well as your grants and scholarships. And if you have questions about breaking it down or you're not quite sure what it means, of course, you can always reach out to us as well. So mid to end of February right now is our target. So students, if you've been accepted, filed a FAFSA, included Commonwealth University on the FAFSA as a recipient, you will expect to receive a notification from us very soon. Okay, so be on the lookout for that. And each school does it a little differently. So again, but I can't stress enough, we don't do paper copies. So make sure you're checking your email. Let's talk about some of the different types of financial aid here. So I've mentioned federal direct loans a couple different times. Federal direct loans, these are the loans that your student has access to simply because they completed the FAFSA. All freshmen are eligible to borrow $5,500 their freshman year. Once they hit sophomore standing based on credit count, they're eligible to borrow $6,500 per academic year. That number goes to $7,500 for junior standing, and it stays at $7,500 again for senior year. So students are eligible to borrow their federal loans, but in order to do it, again, students must complete the FAFSA every single year. There are two types of federal direct loans. There's the subsidized, and that's based on financial need. So at the beginning of the presentation, when I said how's a loan based on need, subsidized loans are based on financial need. So it looks at the data on the FAFSA to determine whether or not a student can be eligible for a portion of that $5,500 their freshman year as a subsidized loan. And there's also the unsubsidized. That is not based on financial need. And you can see the interest accrues while the student is in school. The difference being, of course, the subsidized does not accrue interest as long as the student is enrolled, okay? Or during the grace period. And you can see the grace period that I have listed there on the left. It's a 6-month grace period that students have to repay these loans once they're no longer enrolled, which, of course, we all hope that's graduation. But these are the federal student loans that the student has access to. Now, most of the students I work with, you usually see a split. You get a portion of the fifth. We're using 5,500 as an example because that's the freshman level of borrowing. They get a split, unsubsidized and unsubsidized. Again, whether a family makes $0 per year or $1 million per year, that student is eligible to borrow $5,500. The difference becomes if the income is too high based on the information reported in the FAFSA, it is possible that your student may see their full $5,500 as unsubsidized loan. Okay, so that's possible. So when you get that financial aid notification, if you say where's the subsidized, it's $5,500 and unsubsidized, I would venture to guess that your student aid index number was high. Okay, so and you can see what your student aid index number is on the summary section of your FAFSA. And we also include that number on the financial aid notification as well at the top of the screen. Let's talk about the Federal Direct Plus loan. So Plus loan is for parents to borrow if they wish to help their students. So again, parents, just because you filed a FAFSA doesn't mean you're automatically getting signed up for a loan. That's not what we're saying here. This is a separate application. Should you, as a parent, wish to help your student finance a portion of their education. Parents would go to studentaid.gov, you would log in with your FSA ID, and you would apply for the Parent Plus loan there. Some important things to know about the Parent Plus loan is that it cannot be transferred back to your student. So a lot of parents will say, well, I'll do it now, and then we'll transfer the loan over to my student. That's not the case. The loan stays with the parent until it's paid off, okay? The other question that often comes up is, how do I know if I'll be approved? It's like any other application. There will be a credit inquiry, so they'll check the credit, and they do a debt to income test. One of my colleagues says they're looking to see if you pay your bills, and I think that's a really good way to put it. I've had parents in the past who thought they would never get approved for a Parent Plus loan. Surprised they did. I've had people confident they would be approved and they don't get approved. So, I don't have a credit score that I can give you to say you're in or you're out. But if you choose to apply for it to see if you want to help your student, it's a great option. If your student has a gap and they need some money and you're willing to do it, it can be a good option. If a parent is denied, that box at the bottom right-hand corner of the screen there, it's not often we apply for a loan and we hope we get denied. But if a parent applies and gets denied for a plus loan, there is a benefit to your student. Because the parent was denied, student can be eligible to borrow $4,000 per academic year in unsubsidized loan money. That's the one that the interest does accrue. But that is the benefit to the student. So if a parent gets denied, the student can come to a financial aid at any of our locations and indicate that their parent was denied and they wish to have additional unsubsidized loan. We have them fill out a quick form, sign it, and our loan officer makes sure that that additional money gets applied to their account. Okay. So, parents, if you're willing to take the hit, even if you don't think you get approved, if you're okay taking the hard inquiry, um, that's the benefit to your student if you do get denied. They can be eligible for that additional loan money. Private alternative loans. This is the other. This is the last resort option, as I say. And these are the loans students over the years. Loans have kind of it's become a somewhat derogatory term. Students are becoming more and more aware of debt and limiting their debt and limiting the loans that they take out, which I think is obviously very smart. But of course, the challenge is the days of a mythical full ride are basically they're basically gone. So everybody has some sort of loan debt. The private loans are the ones that you need to be careful with. Private loans typically are higher interest rate. The terms of repaying them are going to be different. So you want to make sure before you sign or co-sign a private student loan for your student, make sure everybody understands exactly what the repayment parameters are. And we are a lender neutral institution. So many times families will say, what's the best? Who has the best rate today? And that's information that number one, I don't have. I don't research it, and I can't recommend it because we are lender neutral. But we do provide a resource. You'll see in the tan box there on the bottom, elmselect.com. It's basically an aggregate database where you'll go on, your student or a parent can go on. You basically select that you're an undergraduate student and you can type in Commonwealth University and you'll get a dashboard pop up, probably about a dozen loan options. Now, that's not all inclusive of all the private options that are out there, but the loans that you see on that dashboard are loans where our students have frequently borrowed over the course of the past 3 years. So to make it onto that dashboard, there's a qualifier. Okay, so that means Commonwealth University students are using those lenders. Again, not all inclusive. You may go out and find other private lenders that are out there. The other thing about private loans, I will tell you, it's changed drastically in the past, 20 years. I say that because I had private loans as an undergraduate student. A student who has no credit history, which I think most traditional students do not, will not be able to get a private loan without a cosigner. Okay. Now, the beauty of a cosigner is that it doesn't have to be a parent, it could be a grandparent, aunt, uncle. But most students, unless they have an extensive positive credit history, will need a cosigner. So it can make it challenging. The other thing to look for in a private loan, if that's the route that you decide to go, is look for a cosigner release. That's an option that some loans will have. They'll have a section that will indicate if you make X amount of one-time payments, cosigners can be off the hook. So if you go out to a cosigner, if you go out to that rich relative and you're trying to convince them to cosign a loan, if there's a release and you make your payments on time, that can be a selling point to try to get a cosigner. Because again, if you don't make your payment, your cosigner is on the hook. So private loan, I would say last resort option. It's there. It's a tool. It has its place in the world. But you have to be really careful with private loans just because the interest rates are so high. Couple final thoughts before we jump into looking at some of your questions here. And the first one kind of hits on what I just said. Only borrow what you need. You don't want to borrow an excessive amount of money. You can borrow because you can borrow more than your cost. But that's not always a smart thing to do because it's important to remember that this money that you're borrowing will in fact have to be repaid. Okay. So only borrow what you need. One of the buzzwords that we hear on campus within the first week and a half of school is refund. If the student they get their bill and then they get their financial aid. Once their financial aid, anything that is in excess of what they owe, that financial aid will get returned to the student as a refund. Okay. So it's total cost minus financial aid equals either something more to pay or a negative number. And that if it's a negative number, that's a refund that comes back to your student. Um, Now, if the refund is a result of all free money, grants and scholarships, that's perfect. Sometimes what happens though is students over borrow, and they borrow loan money, they get a refund, and then they quickly turn around and they go and spend that loan money, which they're borrowing at a with an interest rate at Walmart. So just be really careful when your student gets a refund. Make sure you know why. Um, and certainly, probably most of the parents in the room are like, if it's the result of a loan, we want to make sure that we get that money returned, so that you're not borrowing it. Apply for scholarships early in every year. All of our locations have internal scholarships, which will be opening up to our current students very soon. So as a current, once you're here as a student, there will be scholarship opportunities. Utilize work study. Every single location on campus has an opportunity, has many opportunities where you can find employment. We hire students in our financial aid offices. Our colleagues in the admissions office hire students. You've probably already met those students. They give tours on campus. They've eaten lunch with you at the dining hall, the student rec center, uh, oh gosh, the residence halls. All these places hire students to work on campus. So it can be a great way to save up money. And we're paying $12 an hour right now to our student employees. So you can work in the summer months. You can pay on your loans as you go. That's something to think about. You don't have to. That's not a requirement, but you can. Make sure you take 15 credits every semester. So most of our majors are 120 credits. Now there's some variation there. There's some that are a little bit more than that, but in general, let's say 120 credits. So if you're taking 15 credits per semester, then you're going to graduate in 4 years. The other kind of hidden secret here about Commonwealth University is you pay the same tuition whether you're taking 12 credits, that's 4 classes, 15 credits, 5 classes, or 18. That's six classes at 3 credits apiece. You pay the same tuition rate. So what a deal! You can't beat that. Make sure you're taking your classes. Now you won't take 18 credits your first semester your freshman year, but you could certainly consider that. Adjust your meal plan if needed. Many times, incoming freshmen, they get the biggest meal plan. And they're like, okay, I got 19 meals a week, and they're only eating 13 meals a week. You don't get refunded that money. So our recommendation, I know my colleagues in admissions always say the same thing, start with a meal plan that you think fits your lifestyle best. So start with a 14 meals per week meal plan. Doesn't work out after a couple weeks, upgrade your meal plan, but don't spend the money up front. Same with rooms. And I know students don't like to hear me say this, but do you need to live in the most luxurious option? I know where you live is important, and you have to have a good living situation to do well academically. I understand that. But sometimes upgrading your accommodations means that you are seriously increasing your price. So make sure you take a look at that, think about it, tour all those facilities to make sure that you're getting the place that's best for you. You can pay interest on your student loans while you're in school. Again, that is not a requirement. And then most importantly, compare financial aid notifications and do the math. If you have questions about our financial aid notification that we send you, call us. Please call us. Let us walk you through it. Let us go over it with you. We want to make sure you fully understand it because those notifications are going to look different at every single school. Okay. And we just want to make sure that you're comparing, apples to apples and oranges to oranges, and that you know exactly what you're looking at. Commonwealth University is a really good buy right now. I know that kind of sounds like a salesperson, and Justin, you're like, oh, I'm not a salesperson, but it's a good deal. Right? It's a good deal. Don't they say that in the song, right? The song you have me singing. What a deal. So I mean, it is. It's a great deal right now. So look at your notification. If there's anything we can do, give us a call. So here's the contact information for all 3 of our campuses: Bloomsburg, Lock Haven, and Mansfield. Again, we share an inbox because we are one financial aid office. So you can email us at financialaid@commonwealthu.edu. You can see where our offices are located there, as well as our phone numbers. So if you have questions, give us a call, send us an email. You can start dropping your questions in chat now. This is really the conclusion of my presentation. So we would love to, field a couple questions before we get out of here. So you take it away.
Yeah, questions coming in hot right now. We have a question we had a question from the beginning as you was presenting. My son was admitted and received financial aid information from Bloomsburg before submitting the FAFSA. FAFSA application is now completed. How can we get an updated offer? Is this a
Let's see here.
current student that is already on campus, or would be a first time freshman?
Well, yeah, a first-time freshman, unless it was a student who was going to come last, could be a student that was supposed to come in the fall who's now coming in the spring, or maybe we're slated to come this. I'm not sure the scenario there. We haven't sent out any notifications yet to any new incoming students for this upcoming year. So I would tell you that if you're not sure what you're seeing, I think it'd be a good idea for you to phone one of our offices. I would encourage you to give us a call. You can jot down Bloomsburg's number there, give us a call, let us know exactly what you're seeing, because it's hard for me to answer that question without knowing a little bit more. Generally speaking, though, yes, if something changes with your financial aid offer, it typically does prompt and trigger a new notification to be sent out.
Um, Kirk in the chat said we got a letter of scholarships for freshmen in 2025, 2026 before filing FAFSA. Yeah, no, you're going to get your merit scholarship you're going to get your letter for your merit scholarship before you apply for your FAFSA and financial aid. So your merit scholarship will get applied to you. We'll get a letter sent to you and be in your application portal the moment you apply and get accepted and meet the GPA criteria from there. We also had another question in the Q&A chat. At what point do you apply for a direct parent plus loan? That's a great question too.
So that's a great question. So the direct parent plus loan, the best time to apply would be after you get your bill. And I know that cuts it really close to the beginning of the semester. So bills typically come out at the end of July, very beginning of August. At that point, as a parent, you're gonna know exactly what the deficit is. So what isn't being covered by financial aid, and you'll know exactly what you need to go out and apply for as a parent plus loan. Now, as a parent, you can apply for more than what you owe, but if you're looking to keep your borrowing down and only cover what's owed and what your student can't cover, wait until your bill comes out, and that's going to be end of July, beginning of August.
Yep, thank you there. If a student has been offered a scholarship already after applying, is there a possibility that they may get additional scholarships and grants, or what is offered already a best and final? So that's a great question too. So on our side in admissions, you get your scholarship based on your tier GPA the moment you apply. As currently at this moment, there's no adjusting what that merit scholarship is or going to be. But however, you can, whether you qualify for Pell, FIA grants too as well, there is a possibility on the grant side that you may get additional funds that way. But as far as our merit scholarship, that is our best and final offer. I mean, best and final offer when it comes to that. But however, when you are a student on campus and you have gone through your child has gone through, or you have gone through the first semester, there will be foundation scholarships for them to apply for, which foundation scholarships is it's money that alumni donate back to the university to help retain current students. And, a plethora amount of our students are awarded for those per year. And that's just some more means and funds that way too as well. Um, my daughter is a part-time student. How do we determine what academic year she is in for FAFSA description?
So whether or not your daughter is a part-time or full-time student, she'll still need to indicate, whether or not she's a, freshman, sophomore, junior, senior. Um, so whether or not she's planning on going part or full-time, she'll still meet one of those criteria based on credit count. So if she's brand new incoming student and only planning going part-time, she'd still be a freshman. I hope that answers the question.
Great questions. You all are very engaged with us this evening. I love that. How can we confirm we correctly entered on the FAFSA form Commonwealth? I'm pretty sure I did, but not sure how to find out. Thank you.
Yeah, so you can go into your even if it's been some time since you've completed your FAFSA, you can go in and you can review your FAFSA information. Your student can log in and check that out, and you'll be able to see it there. And again, the good news is if you have not done it, you can always go in and make a change to that and make sure that you do in fact include us. But if you log back in, if your student logs back in, they'll be able to see that in the data that they put on their FAFSA.
I'm starting in the spring semester and I have my FAFSA done for the semester. So for next year, would I still select freshmen for the fall?
Um, so that question that they ask whether you're a freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, or higher level, that's all based on your credit count. So if you are starting in the spring and you end the spring with 15 credits, then that's correct. You will for this up for fall 25, you will in theory, if that's your situation, you'll still be a freshman. You have to be at 30 above 30 credits to be a sophomore. So sounds like you'll be a freshman for fall.
Um, so from our first question in the beginning, um, his son was admitted and received financial aid information to Bloom before submitting the FAFSA. Financial aid application is now completed. How can we get the updated offer? So his son he commented later down in the chat. His
Mm-hmm.
son's the first time freshman.
Yeah,
Um,
it sounds to me like perhaps they may be referring to your merit scholarship letter, Justin. I'm wondering if that's the case because merit scholarship letters offers will go out before a FAFSA is filed.
mhm.
That's FAFSA is not a requirement to get a merit scholarship. So I'm guessing that a merit scholarship letter got delivered. You have filed your FAFSA, and then financial aid notifications they will go out mid to end of February. Now, on your financial aid notification, you'll also see your merit scholarship as well. But yeah, so I think that's what's happening there, if I'm guessing correctly.
Yeah. I think that's kind of what it sounds like to Sue as well. They might have gotten their merit scholarship letter and then not their FAFSA yet.
Yeah.
But I don't know if you probably touched on this in the presentation. Will student athletes receive what their coach might have promised them on their financial aid award letter too, right? They won't
Oh
receive.
yeah, that's a good question. So for any athletes in the room who have had conversations with coaches about scholarships, athletic scholarships don't always get on the financial aid notification that you'll see in coming up in February. In fact, I will say most of the times it doesn't. And that's because there's a series of things that have to happen behind the scenes. Coaches sign paperwork, the athlete signs paperwork. And until all that's finalized, we don't get notified. So those athletic scholarships, they typically get added on later. So don't panic if you're an athlete and you don't see your athletic scholarship. If your coach has told you and confirmed that you're getting a $2,000 soccer scholarship, then it'll hit later. So if and if you have questions, follow up with your coach. But yeah, we typically don't add those until I know we're trying for much earlier this year. But in the past, I can tell you typically haven't gotten added until the summertime. So don't be frustrated if you see that. Don't be scared. That's normal.
And somebody else also asked, can my part-time early college student receive scholarships? So early college, there's not any, since the cost is extremely lower for early college students, there's no merit that early college student will receive, but they can apply for financial assistance through early college, and you can always reach out to your early college admissions rep too. Her name is Kendra Rockwell. She's fantastic. She's based out of Bloomsburg, but she's at all three campuses, Bloomsburg, Lockhaven, and Mansfield, and she can help you with walk step by steps on how to get that how to apply for financial assistance too as well. And she said also they've sent emails about that too as well about applying for financial assistance. Um, I'm deciding when will Bloomsburg send their financial aid info from completed FAFSA forms. Mr. Mike, didn't you say February, middle of the late February?
Correct. Yeah, our target right now is mid to late February. So just make sure you're checking your email. Um, we can't stress that enough. Check your personal email. Once you get your Commonwealth email, make sure you're checking it. Make sure you're checking both. But that will get delivered mid to end of February. Could be sooner. I don't want to promise that though. We're saying mid to end of February right now.
Yep. And I'm deciding between Commonwealth and another university, and I haven't yet made a final decision on which one to attend. How do I indicate on FAFSA that I haven't chosen a school yet? So, I mean, I'm not a financial aid expert, Mike, but you know, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe you can select up to 20 schools on your financial aid um application, right? And you know, you
Yeah,
don't have
you're correct. Nope, you're correct. You're allowed to select up to 20. That's correct.
perfect. And you know,
Yeah.
even though you're deciding between one and another us and another school, you can still put us on that on your selection and then put the other school. So then you're able to get a couple, you know, financial aid award letters back and compare apples to apples on which one you like better.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, and you don't have to worry like, you know, you never have to worry about telling FAFSA like, oh, I picked Commonwealth University over XYZ college. You know, you'll get your aid notifications and we'll see you at Commonwealth University in the fall.
I have one student in college and an upcoming freshman. Do they each do a FAFSA?
Yes, that is correct. Each student will do a FAFSA. And then you as a parent will go in and be the contributor on each of their FAFSAs. So congratulations, you'll have two to do.
And we have another question here too as well. How can you add additional school into your FAFSA application when submitted already?
So you can log in, it should be available. You can log in and you can make a change to your FAFSA, and you can go in and you can add additional universities and colleges. Yep. So you should be able to do that at any time when you log back. Have your student log back in with FSA ID. You should be able to make that update. Unless you recently completed the FAFSA and it's processing, then you won't be able to do anything yet.
We have a ton of questions piling up in the chat here.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
I know this was financial aid, but did you say that you can possibly adjust your meal plan a couple weeks into the semester? Yeah.
Yes, you can. You can. I gotta be careful how I word this. You can upgrade your meal plan at any time, but you have only a short period of time to downgrade. So if you start with a 19 and you decide you don't want it, you have to make that decision fairly quickly into the new semester, um, because at a point you'll be locked into it. So that's why I typically tell students start with the lower one that you think you want, and then if you're starving at the end of the first week or two, you can always upgrade. Fair, that's fair advice, right, Justin?
Hmm. Yep.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm looking here at the questions. So another letter of scholarships for freshmen in 25-26. So that may be related to foundation scholarships. Yeah, before filing the FAFSA, um, that's likely what it was. The merit scholar, I'll let you answer the question about merit scholarships. Are they given to all students or those who meet the criteria, or is it selective?
No, yeah. So, you know, you submit your application, you submit your transcripts, and it goes upon GPA. Starts off at a Bloomsburg and Lockhaven starts off at a 3.0, and it goes all the way up to 4.0. And then for Mansfield, it goes into the 2.5 range for merit scholarships too as well. So it's different for selective campuses. It's different for local territories if you're in like a local radius between any of the campuses. There's a local scholarship too as well. There's also a transfer scholarship model. So our website, if you go to www.commonwealthu.edu, it'll have, and there's like a cost and aid section. There's a breakdown chart of each scholarship tier, each scholarship model, and a very, very transparent chart on GPA equals this scholarship. And
Let's see. What's the next question here? Well, let me make sure I don't miss it. When is FIA form due for 25-26? So May 1st is the deadline. You want to make sure your FAFSA is filed by May 1. And you want to make sure that that state grant application is done as well. So May 1, very important deadline. Can you reiterate when you should do FIA versus direct student or plus loans? So FIA is separate from FIA administers the PA state grant. So um, May 1st, you have to make sure your FAFSA is done by May 1st, and then the PA state grant application by May 1. Um, the direct student loans, those are the loans that I mentioned that your student is eligible for, $5,500 for their freshman year. So, and then you ask about plus loans. So typically what happens is student gets their bill, student gets they know what their aid is prior to that, and then typically whatever isn't covered, so whatever the deficit is, so once the grants are taken away, the loans are taken away, whatever's left over, that's usually a good time to go on and look at a plus loan, if you're a parent and you're willing to help your student. um, Hopefully that answers the question. When do we receive scholarship money if we start in May? And when do we get billed for schooling to apply for loans if we start in May? How many credits is part-time? So to be part-time student at the undergrad level, that's 6 credits. It's considered half-time. Um, if you're starting in May for scholarships, you're not going to have a scholarship. So when you say starting in May, that leads me to believe you're starting in the summer. Your scholarships won't be applicable until the fall semester. Merit-based scholarships are only applicable fall and spring semester, if that's what you're referring to there. You'll get billed if you mentioned May. So if you're starting in May, you'll get billed sometime in May before the summer session starts. If you're starting in August, the bill will come out at the end of July, very beginning of August. Sorry, I did my best to answer that question. Hopefully that took care of it. How's the student aid index numbers work on the FAFSA? Is there a bracket of how much the student will receive? It's kind of a magical formula that works behind the scenes to calculate that number. It looks at parent income, student income, assets, and then it creates that student aid index number. Parents will often ask, what's the chart? Can you give me an idea on what it looks like for Pell? Am I going to get anything? And if so, how much? I don't. That all happens behind the scenes with the FAFSA formula. As an employee of CU using a tuition waiver, are foundation scholarships considered university or external? That's a good question. I think foundation scholarships, I don't think, Justin, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think that there's anything that will prohibit a university employee's child from winning a foundation scholarship. Like, so for instance, yes, your student has a tuition benefit, but if they're a science major and they win a biology scholarship, I think that's okay, right?
yeah, I would think so. I would think so too, because the foundation is
Yeah,
through alumni, and
yeah,
I don't think that should be a problem.
yeah. The only thing I'm aware of there are the differences in the tuition benefit for staff, and then of course not being able to receive a merit scholarship on top of that. So, but yeah. Let's see. What's the next question? Been a while since we completed FAFSA. I don't recall indicating that we were eligible for anything more than 5,500. Are you saying that things may change in the February timeframe? I would tell you that it sounds like you've done a FAFSA for another child in the past. And if you were eligible for only loans and your income hasn't changed drastically in during that time, I would tell you to be prepared for the worst case scenario. If you have a high student aid index number, you may find that you're only eligible for loans. You may not be eligible for Pell Grants and state grants and other things like that. So, yes, that may very well be the case. FAFSA is filed. Do we find out through the studentaid.gov website how much unsub and sub we are eligible for? Is that through the school letter? That's a good question. The notification that you get in February will indicate what your sub and unsub split looks like. Okay. So you will see that on the financial aid notification. Oh, somebody says I have my student's SAI number. That's perfect. Don't share it here. But yeah, your student aid index number, that's the number. Yeah, the higher that number is, it drives down your grant eligibility. The lower that it can go as low as a negative 1,500. That's as low as you can go, and then sky's the limit. So, but that is the number that will drive the whole process in determining whether or not students are eligible for federal and state grants.
No, these are great questions everyone's asking here. We have another question here in the Q&A chat. Is a merit scholarship just for full-time students? So that's a great question. So merit scholarships will be renewed annually. Excuse me. And the requirements is to maintain a 2.0 GPA and to have 24 credits completed over the course of a year. So however, that wants to get breaking out is completely, up to you, the student, but you have to take 24 credits a year to be able to keep and qualify for your merit scholarship. So yeah. Um, if that's all, then please, this was very engaging. We definitely do appreciate the time you all spent this evening to join us tonight. This will be posted on our social media platforms, YouTube channels, things like that, for anyone to rewatch. To the ones who joined us, thank you. And Mr. Hall, thank you for your time too as well, taking out your time this evening to chat with prospective students and families about the financial aid process. So we greatly appreciate you.
Yeah, there was one quick question that came in there about the nursing program. If you're still here, yeah, you can research nursing right on the website. Just go to Commonwealth University
Or
under the
somebody
academic
asked about
section. You can
nursing.
learn all. Yeah, somebody asked about it in the Q&A. They just asked where they could get more information on nursing. Yeah, so you can just you can check that out. I think I may have actually I completed the question already. But yeah,
Okay.
just on the academic section of the website. Yep, absolutely.
And then also
So
too, as well, to answer that, to get a little bit further, you can also come visit campus. We have open house dates that are posted online too as well, where you'll hear more from the faculty members about your programs. We have acceptance students days too as well, for you to come visit campus and check it out and show you why you need to come here or anywhere else. So again, thank you for your time, and hope everyone here has a great night. All right, see you.
thank you.